I realized that the exercise community is like the trunk of the tree. It's like the trunk of the tree. And then you have
everybody sees.
Yeah, everybody sees this trunk, this sexy, like even six pack. Like you got to have this sexy core. They use core as the word.
The trunk too. I like that.
The trunk is the core. And then you have the mindset wealth community that's like, you got to get them fruits, man. Them fruits are the things that you want, you know?
Yeah.
Like you got to get rid of some fucking fruits. And then like my thing, and I'm trying to sequence into it is like, dude, you know, the roots down there are the things that actually pull the nutrients up the trunk into the leaves and then out of a bud that you grow. Like without the roots, there's nothing, none of this works. And like I honestly believe the roots are where the most work happens. The trunk is just like for support. It's just there to help the tree grow into what it needs to be. And the fruits are a byproduct of all the labor that the roots did. You know, like if the soil is shit, the roots don't even do nothing. And the trunk doesn't grow, and there is never any fruit. And if there is a fruit, it's flimsy looking. It's like, dude, you really even wasted your time making that piece of shit fruit. Like, you didn't eat that thing. You know, so it's like when you're in that waiting, like the summit, it's like, man, there is so much depth, and it's dark here, so it looks like you're waiting. But if you close your eyes, like you don't need eyes. Like you just go in and go deep, and you do the actual development. And you think about it in roots, like I think of it as like a nervous system. The nervous system of our body is like firing, like these roots are going in, and it's going in. The one, you know, maybe I say like, yeah, I really want to feel sexy. And all of a sudden you get like a cramp in your arm. And it's like, oh, wait, it's like a nutrient deposit. Like your nervous system is sending like a function to go down and investigate that area. And it's like something is there that I need to grow my trunk so I can support, you know, whatever development that eventually I'm going to become. And it's like those roots, dude, that summit, that's the place like where everything happens.
You know what? And you're right. And it's, I like that analogy, and to kind of dig deeper into like kind of what I've been experiencing, right? It's felt like a lot of inaction, right? But what in essence it is it's a lot of kind of conscious awareness about opportunities that are coming, because they're always seeming to come and I'm letting them pass by, right? And so it's as much as it seems like inaction, it's very purposeful and like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I see you. And there was a time when I would pursue that because there was a chance it would make some money. And or I want to work with that person because I like what they do or I think they're cool. And so I'm going to invest my time or money or something into that. And there's been, you know, a lot of opportunities, especially as I've kind of had a better idea of the direction I want to go. Right. People or opportunities that I'd like to work with or leverage with, whatever, right? That opportunistic kind of energy, which I've been much more aware of, and I've been able to pull back from saying, okay, why do you really want to do that? You know, why do you think that would be a good partnership for you? You know,
talking to your roots.
Like what is it about you that you feel like you're lacking? Right. And so it's helped me. And Peyton's been great about this. Like, okay, why? You know, she's really good about asking me the why. Like, why do you want to do that? Like, what is it about you that makes you feel like you're not complete and that you can't do whatever it is on your own? It's like, oh, it's hard to confront sometimes.
Yeah, man.
But grateful for the opportunity to, because there was a time when either she wouldn't ask, right? Because she didn't know, or I would just bypass it and I would make up I'd rationalize it or just intellectualize it in some way to fit my needs. I'm pretty good at that. And
we all pretty good, man.
Right?
Like, that's the thing. That's the game is hiding.
So just to, you know, just sit with it. And, you know, one of the things I've been talking about a lot lately is just this ability or this opportunity for me lately to get back in touch with my intuition. and I think that's one of the things that was a byproduct of the work that we were doing, right? Mm-hmm. With the trauma releasing exercises, it was getting into the body, spending so much time in the head. Mm-hmm. And with that, just not knowing what the fuck I was doing. I was just doing whatever it was on the list for the day.
Right.
Right. And it's like when we stopped that, and I was like, okay, I stopped training hard because I was working with Ryan, and he's like, okay, in order for these protocols to really work, we need to tone down the training. Well, it's my nature. It's like, fine, fuck it. I just won't train at all rather than train differently. Mm-hmm. And then you and I started working together, and it was like, oh, like you recognize all this like armoring, right? And I had never thought about that. Mm-hmm. Like that was so odd for me to think of this physical, muscular kind of armoring and how that was also playing into the emotional side. Mm-hmm. And that was probably one of the biggest things I learned early on with you was how, and you put it in very plain terms, because again, it was a foreign concept to me. It's like you coming in here, you're working out, you're in battle. And that's our warrior mentality. You're in there, you're working out, you're giving everything you can. Like you're challenging yourself. Right. And that shit's awesome. Yeah. Like I loved that. And I loved when I could step up to the challenge, and generally I was pretty kind to myself when I didn't. There was a reason, right? Mm-hmm. But what your point was, when you're done, what do? You just go in the house. Mm-hmm. And then you're meeting everyone, whether you realize it or not. And clearly I did not realize it, but you're meeting everyone with this energy still. There's this element that there's a battle going on.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're like, you need to like take one of those, what are those balls called?
Like a Swiss ball. Like a Swiss stability ball, yeah.
Lay over that Swiss ball, ribs open, and
on your back.
Physically surrender. Mm-hmm.
Laying on your back, yeah.
Whoa. Yeah. I've never thought about that. And just that physical act of surrender just allows for me to show up in a different way. Mm-hmm. Like, man, I walked around so tense all the time. Like it was an underlying intensity, right? And I think if we're talking to someone, they wouldn't say, dude, you're super intense. Yeah. It's just like this, just a little tight walking around. Like if someone came up and, went for the bicep, it was definitely ready to
fire. Yeah.
You lift up the shirt, it's stacked up.
Time, yeah.
And I didn't understand how that was manifesting in my emotional state. Mm-hmm. And it was something that I had been struggling with. Like, why am I not able to show up like I want to? Because I know how I want to be, and I know how I don't want to be, and I'm continuing to show up like I don't want to be. Like I'm this loving person, like deep inside me. I mean, like from the moment we met, I mean, we were brothers.
Yeah.
And for some reason I was really struggling with that at home. And it's like, what is it? And I think you started to unlock that for me. It's like, bro, you're just like armored up, and it's right. And then as I started to dig deeper into that, I started to recognize, and I think we were talking about this. I was at a wedding in Boston. Was it maybe it was a year ago. And I saw this guy walking towards me with his cute girlfriend, and he was like in his 20s and jacked up, and he looked really good, right? But I had this moment. I was like, oh, fuck. I know that was me. Mm-hmm. Like, not judging that he was hiding something, but I was like, oh, what was I hiding?
You're identifying yourself in the mirror there.
Yeah, like I just saw all this muscle as me trying to throw off the stink. Like, hey, don't worry about any of this other stuff about me, but look at how strong I am. Like I'm stronger than most guys my age. Like that whole narrative, and just how that, seeing that, and at that point I had I hadn't been working out. I went from like 205 to 185. I was really lean, like I am right now.
Yeah.
And I would get questions all the time. People haven't seen me for 6, 8, 10 months. Dude, what's going on? You lost a lot of weight. It's like first couple times I heard that,
little sting.
Didn't feel good.
What are you talking about?
Fucking ego was like, oh, maybe I gotta go. I gotta start working out again.
I gotta get back into that battle, man.
I got it, right? It's like, and fortunately, I was aware enough of that voice of where it was coming from was pure ego and wanting to identify with that person. But like, that was a facade. That wasn't me.
Well, maybe I just want to pose this as a thing to think about. Because when you say that, when I saw you, is like, and you said it yourself. You're like, I'm a loving person. Like even when we first met, like you were brothers. Like we had that. I recognized that, like, you had armor on. So I was like, oh yeah, it's just armor. Like, don't even pay attention to that. Like this is a thing, right? But why is the armor there? Like, is it cultural, or is it that your loving person was mistreated or not accepted, in somewhere in your life where you felt like, I have to make this guy stronger because the love is not getting received, or it's not being seen, or it's not being felt, or when I do show the love, I'm actually getting punished. So I have to build up a strong exterior frame around that, loving side. So then you have it, but then every time you meet somebody, it's like you're going to a coffee shop and they're placing your order and you're throwing your shield on the glass counter and people are like, what the fuck, dude? Like, why'd you just do that? And it's like, oh, what do you mean? Like, you feel like you did, like, why are they looking at me like this? Why is this coming through? But it's like, you literally have this warrior presence, because you're trying to shield something. You're trying to cover something up, and it's like people see the shield, and now we've been, idealizing like, oh yeah, that a shield's a beautiful thing. Like we got to make that shield beautiful. It's like, yeah, or you can, heal the person inside of you that was, hurt, and you can actually display love and feel that and not have to armor it up all the time. But yeah, for sure, you need the armor. Like it's useful stuff. Like, like that. When you said like an ego thing, like I kind of disagree with it a little bit. Like people were demonizing this avatar that we have, and the avatar, all it's doing is trying to like just play itself in this reality. It's doing everything it's been taught, and utilizing it to a T. And like we have, as creators of our own, reality, we have to go in there and say, oh yeah, like, hey man, like that past, that guy that said that to you or whatever, like, yeah, man, he probably had some issues too, and meet that on a body level too, inside your body. Where is that tension holding? Oh, it's in my chest. Like every time I see a guy that reminds me of that time, I get tight in my chest, which makes me want to go do bench press more. So I get stronger and stronger so they can't pierce me. But really, it's like relieving that tension sequence, relieving that, hurt and pain, and allowing it like, oh yeah, the ego is just a representation of how I'm feeling and acting. It's not necessarily a bad, people say ego death, like kill the ego. I'm like, man, well, dude, like this poor ego is just trying to get through the day. Like, let him be, man. Yeah. Like, let him be,
He's doing the best he can.
Yeah. So, I mean, like the armor and stuff, like that's great. And I know that same feeling. I went through the same thing. Like my goal was to get to 200 pounds. I was like, I was 140 pounds in high school. I was like, that's a big jump, 60 pounds of muscle, and I was relatively skinny at the time. So like, when I started losing weight the same way, I was like, man, like I don't feel the same. Like I don't feel like as good, like when it's like, oh, why? And for me, it's like, keep taking the layers off, keep peeling it back. And I think you've done the same thing. It's big like, time. Oh, this armor is basically like a defense mechanism that when I feel threatened, I need to do this thing versus like now I own the fear. No one has fear over me. Fear is a real thing. Like we don't have to pretend like it doesn't exist. Like own the fear. And now it's like, oh yeah, that feeling. Oh yeah, it means I have some work that still is unresolved. You don't have to go and put something over it. And like, you know, I just watched that movie Big Daddy recently, and like, you know how he throws like have you seen that movie?
It's been forever, so I'm not gonna recall.
The kid spills milk on the ground, and he just puts paper or newspaper over it. And like, that's kind of like what we do with like our body. Yeah. It's like, put some more layers of something over it, just cover up the thing and act like it doesn't really exist.
It's buried down there deep.
Yeah. It's kind of a haphazard way of doing things, but you know, that's kind of why I'm here to try to
but it's like as you were speaking about all that, right? Like I kept feeling it right here. Like, oh man, it's like, that's the like truth, you know, and that I think in part of my personal evolution is becoming aware to those things.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
And, you know, so grateful for our connection and relationship. Likewise, and for what I've been able to learn, through these pieces. You know, we've had a few experiences where, I mean, you know, like I felt viscerally that 13-year-old boy he was like this, ready for anything. Right. And so, you know, either that was the moment it started or it was younger, but like, that's where the armoring, you know, was layering up. Mm-hmm. And
that's where you decided to fight back.
And it worked. Mm-hmm. Right. I went to a great college. I got a great job. I made great money. I met a great girl, have great, like, so there was positive reinforcement. Mm-hmm. Or at least that was the connection I was making, right? Like all this armoring, right? Never let them see you sweat. Like this is what you get from that. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until it was a little over a year ago. And I had the realization like, oh, the war's over. You know, like you don't have to fight. You don't have to be that scared little boy anymore who's got the armor up. And I'm still obviously battling that.
Sure.
You know, there's a big imprint there. But I'm aware of it today where I wasn't before. And it's getting in the right relationship with when to throw the armor on. And we've talked about this, right? It's not about not having armor anymore.
Yeah, right. Being a tiny little skinny skeleton that gets squished. Yeah.
Like, no, bring it out.
Yeah. Be strong.
Yeah.
Strong is a great
I can
trait.
Still go back squat and power clean and do all those things. Like I'm not called to do that right now, but I feel like it's close. Like I may want to play around with it a little bit. It'll have a little different approach, than before, you know. But it's like, again, that was one of the things. Probably one of the greatest things you gave me was this idea. Like you don't need to just follow a program. You know, given where I am, right? Everybody's got different goals, right? And and you read where I was sitting, like I wanted change. I wanted to feel more into like what I needed, who I was, this deep journey, this existential piece. Like you don't need me to tell you what to do every day to work out.
Like you wanted me to tell you what to do every day, but you don't need it.
That's what I was used to. And that was good because I could do all those things.
For sure.
I can check those boxes and feel like that sense of accomplishment. And if you're training for a sport or whatever, or you're just on that journey, that part of the journey where that's what you want and that's what's best, great. Right now, it's like, what do I...
when you're in the fight, you need the weapons.
Right.
You know, like you need them. I mean, like if your goal is to survive and live, like, I mean, you need them. They're absolutely vital. So step 1, stab. Step 2, pull out. Step 3, stab again. Like you need those checkpoints. Like you need them, you know?
You need the reps in there. You need to, like we were talking about earlier. It's so funny. I've listened to a million podcasts and like so many times it's like, oh, I wish we were rolling before. I was like, dude, I wish we were rolling right now. But, that whole notion of you've gotta, you can't bypass steps. You know, maybe you can bypass 1 or 2, but along the way, if you need to go through the shit, you need to fuck stuff up and do it wrong. And you also need to, as you were saying, like you need to do the bicep curls because they're
calling you.
Yeah.
If they're calling you, like if you're just now checking things out and you see like a magazine say do 20 curls and you're going to get this certain thing. If you're like, oh, my higher self wouldn't like bicep curls. I heard someone say that once.
Yeah.
But you still want that.
The Dalai Lama doesn't do bicep curls.
Do them,
fucking way I'm doing
them. No way. But yeah, if you're being called to it, like that's your place of action.
And I guess that's the piece of truth that I've tried to tap into. And it's like, again, what you showed me very early on, it's like, what are you called to do? Mm-hmm. If you're called to do bicep curls, because in fact, that's what you told me. I think you had laid out like 4 days of what you did. And one of them was like some bodybuilding bicep curls, and other shit was like climbing trees in the park and parkour. And then you were doing some others. Like, he's all over the place.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, holy shit. And it's like, you were so liberated by that. I was like, I don't even know what that feels like. Right. But the fact that you, and what fucked with me was that you were like, in my opinion, like so evolved on this journey, but you're still doing bicep curls. Like, oh, so bicep curls aren't bad.
No.
Because I had passed those up a long time ago, right? I was like, oh, I do CrossFit now. I don't do fucking bicep curls. Who does that?
It's fun to feel that, like it's like, I don't know, but I'm about most people like that don't like bicep curls, but I grew up watching like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So every time I do one, I just imagine this freak of a man. Like I get a smile and it's fun. Like it's fun. Like that's why you should do things like following the actual blissful experience that you're wishing to have all the time. But we have a disagreement in our mind that says these are bad or this is good. Like that's not bliss. Like go, scoot those out of the way, close those files in your browser and, go back to the home screen for a second and let's start over. Okay.
Yeah.
Bicep curls can be awesome. And they are for me. I like to do them every now and then, but yeah, there's no program. It's you're creating the program.
Oh, fuck yeah, dude. That's like, there's so much, I think, feel like tied up within that. And it's like giving yourself permission to play. Like I just keep all you're saying is let's just play.
Dude, yeah, man. And that's it.
I don't think we do. I know I didn't for a long time. You're not going to play. You're going to go do the workout that you're supposed to do. And then you're going to eat the way you're supposed to eat. You can do all these things. And it was such a rigid lifestyle. And Peyton, God bless her, was trying, to like show like, hey, you were like super rigid. Like you don't need to beat yourself up about eating that slice of cake or 5 pieces of cake you had because you were binging. Like it's okay. Like when you make it a bigger thing, when you make it a thing, then you have the adverse effects.
Sure.
Then it's the stress, the judgment and all that. But if you're gonna eat really well and then have a bunch of shit, that's okay. Just be okay with it.
Yeah.
And
you made the decision. It's like someone didn't feed you the shit. So why are you mad at yourself for making a decision that in the moment like felt like a good one? Like that's goes against anything that you ever hear about. Like, you got to fail in order to succeed. It's like, well, I'm failing right now, but I still want to beat myself up about it because I know this wasn't good. It's like, yeah, you only know it wasn't good now after the fact that you did that in the past.
Yeah.
It's like you chose. Become the owner and become back into your power and like realize like no one made you do that. And if someone did make you do that, maybe you should figure that out. Don't be so mad at yourself, It's so crazy, man.
You're right. Don't start pointing the finger at them. Like, how did they make you do that? Exactly. Yeah.
It's weird, man.
It's, I guess that's been a big kind of area of growth too, has been this, like, instead of being very black and white, right? Being much more nuanced. And I think it goes back to this armoring, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I've got to have an opinion. I've got to feel one way or the other. As that armoring is coming off, I was like, oh, I'm a lot more open-minded than I used to be. I see a lot more possibilities when someone suggests something. I don't automatically think about how they're wrong. It's like, there's a lot of shit we think we know, we just don't know about. We just have opinions about it, but it's not based in truth or fact or anything. And so, like that was a notion I had maybe like 2 months ago. It's like, oh, wow. Like as much as I think I know, I really don't know much. Right. And it's a little bit like, oh, I don't really know that much.
Give up all this stuff. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's any psychedelic trip right there.
Yeah. Well, and then it was like, oh, I don't have to know that much stuff. Like, I think I do,
Yeah.
but that's bullshit. Like,
Yeah.
you really, for who do you have to know all this stuff?
Mhm.
And then I think as you start to show up as this person who doesn't really know, but they're curious,
Mhm.
like then all of a sudden it's like all these old things you believed,
Yeah.
you're not attached to them anymore.
Mhm.
Like for me, it's like, I'm not
Yeah.
attached to that shit anymore.
Yeah.
And I can take what you say, right? And when we met, I definitely had that approach,
Mhm.
with meeting you. It's like, whatever you say, like, I'm on board. Like, I want to learn, and I think when you come in with that attitude, like, that's easy, right?
Yeah.
It was easy for me with you because you were the expert coming in, very highly recommended. It's like, okay, I can just learn from you. I'm going to listen to what you say. But when it's someone else, maybe somebody you don't have such fond feelings about, for me, it's like, yeah, I'm going to just try to disagree with you because I don't like your whole thing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right. And then it's like you just butting your head. And now all of a sudden I'm taking a stand on something that I don't even believe, but I just want to oppose you
Mhm.
because there's something about you I don't like.
Yeah.
I can't even pinpoint it. And that's the other piece. Like, I've been trying to be a lot more empathetic and understanding
Mhm.
about where we all sit.
Yeah.
I think I had sent you that podcast with Peter Crone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And one of the things he said, one of the many things, but one of the things he said that it took this notion of everyone's doing the best they can. And I do believe that.
Yeah.
And intellectually, I understand that. And there are times when I can tap into that. But he took it a step further and he said, for you to think that someone should be acting any differently than they are at this very moment based on their DNA, their maybe generational history, and their, current, this human existence history.
Yeah.
For you to think they're acting any differently than they should act any differently than they are right now is ludicrous. Like, this is exactly how they should be acting.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, wow. Like, that, like, gave me, it kind of empowered me to be like, oh, yeah, like, my kids, when they're acting, like assholes, it's not maybe it's because it's something I've done at that moment, but it's arguably something that I've contributed to and some other things in their past. My kids haven't thrown a tantrum. It's exactly what he should be doing. So now it's up to me to figure out, well, why is he doing it? What's going on? What can I do to help move him through this?
Yeah.
I realize he's just got to go through it himself. Right. And that's the other part of the parenting, which is a whole nother paradigm. But it's like, how do we let our kids go through their own shit without trying to save them?
Yeah. How do you respond to that? Like, that's all you have. Like, I realized too, especially with parenting, it's like, you can't change their trajectory. You can respond to the communication, to how they act towards you, whatever it is. You can respond from your place of power and your own choice, and that affects their trajectory. You can't change it. They're going to choose what they want to do. And if you don't think that they have free will, like, then you don't. And it's like, okay, then, this kid is like just a minion until like he gets to a certain age. Then he discovers free will. Like, no, like, this thing is right now. Like, he's doing it or she's doing it right now. It's like, so anyone that's coming at you with a tantrum or pointing the finger, posing what you like, it's like, it's your opportunity to see that and be like, is it stinging me? Is there a wound here? How does this feel? Breathe. Am I in my power? And react. And like, however that comes out is good because you own the power. And then if it's, oh man, I should have reacted better this way, good, learning tool. But like, that's all these people are that, disagree or whatever. Like, it's just a learning tool for your own power.
Yeah.
I mean, because if you're fully in control, fully powered, making 100% all your choices, you've resolved all your history, everything looks clean and clear, you won't even hear any of that. Like, it doesn't even exist because they come in and you're like, you have an effect on this person and they go on their way. It doesn't like strike you as odd or, like, you've met all these things. But until you met everyone in the world, that ain't going to be a thing. Like, you have to meet all these different flavors of human beings that exist. Like, there is not just one flavor, So you're always having a chance to learn about yourself through someone else's disagreements with your presence. You know, it's, yeah, man, that's a big one that I've really learned through that Mankind Project is like seeing the value in all the things that I closed down before, like every encounter with, you know, most men that I didn't see, like you said before, like I saw all this, I saw the image of a person. I'm like, okay, yeah, we can vibe. And I saw another image of a person, like, no, we're not going to vibe. I'm going to, you know, fuck that guy. Right. That guy's poisonous, toxic, whatever. And now I'm looking at it as like, no, like that's a judgment that I'm making on this human being based upon his looks right now. And like, and how easy that sounds, you know, it's complicated to really want to go into it. So I had to do a lot of work on like going into that. But now when I go into that and I open it up like a book, that person's like, what the shit? This guy wants to read me? And then, bleh, you know, something comes out. He vomits up some toxic thing that I'm like, oh yeah, like that's the thing we both agree was toxic. You know, like we both agreed, like now, yeah, like that stuff sucks, man. And, you know, he pounded his fist, give him a hug, and you're on your way. You know, but like I didn't even want to do that with men for a long time. And that's like going through the initiation process, being around other brothers and being like kind of forced, but because I was choosing to be there, but being forced, led. Led into that process. Like it really was allowing me to look at that and be like, oh, wow, like, yeah, I really do have a problem with this. I really have a problem with every other man that exists that doesn't look exactly like this one archetype that I'm trying to be like. Yeah. Like, what?
Yeah, that you're not even being, but you're trying to be
trying
like,
to become. Like, yeah. It's crazy.
It's one of the as you're talking about that experience, it reminds me of when I went on my 5-day silent retreat. And there were, though it was a silent retreat, every night there would be a Q&A. And so there's like 5 or 6 people who would be able to speak. And there was 120, 130 people there. So there's, you know, 30 people, 25, 30 people got to speak. I wasn't one of them. Like you're at a silent retreat. You're not even, there's no eye contact with other people. There's nothing like that. Right. So what happens? You know, the old programming starts coming in. And I see, you know, like, cool dude. Like, I like his look. I like the way he dresses. He's got a cool beard, whatever. Like, this is my guy.
Yeah.
And then I see someone else who doesn't look at all like you. And it's like, you know, and all of a sudden the guy just like does something. And I'm like, oh, yeah, fuck that guy. Right. And it just starts to take over. Mm-hmm. And then at a certain point for me, I was like, holy shit, I don't know anything about anybody here. I haven't even heard them speak. Right. And I'm making all these judgments, good or bad or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like one of the guys that that I had this kind of ill feeling towards, he had been sitting in front of me during one of the talks and he kind of kept nodding his head like, and it was distracting me. So I was annoyed. Right now, what's funny is that I was doing the same thing a couple sessions later. I'm like, oh my God, like I'm nodding my head. Like
I hate myself when I do this.
So the guy, he ends up speaking one night. He asks a question and he has this condition where he can't see like in 3D. Everything's like flat.
Whoa.
It's been like this for years. It's just like a fucking terrifying existence. And it's like, oh, okay. So that's the guy that you were basically like, fuck that guy.
Yeah, right.
He's in a lot of pain. And so it was like, okay, if you still want to do this with people, this is how shitty you're going to feel when you like, it was like almost like, okay, you're going to feel that way about that guy. I'm going to give you like a really shitty story that make you feel super bad about it. Right. And like, it really left an imprint. I'm like, okay, like I need to work on this conditioning of just like judging people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, again, like when you're at a silent retreat, when you know nothing about anybody, it really brought to light for me, like, how judgmental I can be.
Yeah, how you fill in their story. Like, you're like, I don't even care about their story because I know it.
I know it. That's it. Right? And so then you take that, and then again, with this idea that everyone's acting exactly how they should be. And when someone's acting like, quote unquote, an asshole, right? Like, you're just in a lot of fucking pain and they don't know how to release it, right? Maybe that's not the best way for them to let go of it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the best they have. And I know. And so one of the benefits of listening to a guy like Peter Crone and really resonating with that message is there's plenty of times in my past, in my history, when I'm like cringe, like, oh God, dude, seriously, that's how you responded to that. That's what you did. Like, that's embarrassing. That's shameful, all that. But it's allowed me to rewrite that story, right? Each of those stories and say, you know what? That's the best I had. That's the it's unconscious behavior. There's a lack of awareness for me. And those were the fucking best tools I had. It sucks, but now that I've become more aware, I can see it for what it is. But there was a long time where I carried that just shame about that. And, we were talking about earlier, like this sense of like, people having this image of you.
Yeah.
Right. And for me, I think by and large, it's been somewhat of let's call it an elevated image, right? I was successful. I have a great family. I made money. I retired, physically fit, all these things. Right. And so people had this idea. You got a great life, living your best life, do da 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 da. And I only fed it with Instagram when I was, and then we've talked about this when I was with Michael Jordan and the golf guys and all that. What I was dealing with though is I had this sense like, you're a fucking fraud, dude. Like, you're putting this out, and people well-meaning would be like, dude, you're fucking doing great. Congrats. Like, all this. And it's like, no, but you don't know the whole story. And I think one of the, I forget who it was, someone was asking me like, why do you want to do this? The reason I want to do things like this is because I feel like I haven't been able to tell like my story. And I felt that struggle of like, there's this like, perception about what my life is, right? Just like I would make with anybody else, like put them in the box.
For sure.
It's like, no, like, I feel like I can speak my truth and I can feel good about doing that. And however I'm feeling called to do that. Right. And so I could come out and be honest about the struggles I've had. Like, cause everybody, my dad included, listening to the podcast I did with my friend Laura, sent me a text. She's like, dude, I'm sorry. I thought your life was easy. I had no idea that it's like, this is my dad.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Dad doesn't know.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Right. And it's like, I think as I started to investigate that, I felt this struggle, like who doesn't like the accolades, right? Like, it's cool.
Yeah.
But you start believing that bullshit and then you start feeding into it and it becomes a nasty kind of cocktail. And again, like, people are well-meaning by putting you up on a little bit of a pedestal or whatever. But what happens? Okay. So what happens is you can't stay there.
Yeah.
And Peyton and I have talked about this. This is a guy, behavior specialist. He's many things, but his name is Dr. John DeMartini.
I've heard of him.
Dude, and he's like, okay, so I come home from this golf trip, right? With MJ, flying in helicopter, flying private, doing just all the things, right? I feel pretty good about myself.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
pretty important.
Yeah.
Right. Like, I did all of the things I did.
Yeah.
What am I met with when I come home? Well, I'm up here, right? Peyton, God bless her, probably unconsciously is like, no, I need to neutralize that.
Right.
Because you can't live up here.
Yeah.
Just like if I came home dragging in the dumps, she would pick me up.
Yeah, you'd hope so. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely, both ways.
And so I was met again, like, why is there so much friction? I was just doing some fucking cool shit, right? It's because of my attitude. I was taking myself, I had a lot of self-importance around it. Like, I'm cool. Like, look at me. Look at the things I can do.
Yeah.
And I was met with this. It wasn't even like language. It was just this energy, like, kind of repulsed. And what did it do? Brought my shit back down to earth. Right? So now what happens, now that we understand this stuff and we're both in a much better place, right? Now when I come in a little puffed up, she's like, well, tell me about that. It's like, oh, yeah, like this is a kind of a false sense of importance around this certain thing, this Instagram or whatever. It's like, thank you for that reflection. Now she knows how to articulate it.
Yeah.
I know how to receive it.
Yeah.
And then we move on. But see, so here's the other thing I wanted to get to though. If your wife or partner or someone else isn't going to bring you down, something's going to bring you down. And so what I found in my past, it was me. And it was like, you're a fucking fraud, dude.
Yeah.
You're full of shit. People don't know all the shit. And so you end up pulling yourself down.
Yeah, it's hard.
And what's so fucked up about it is you have these people who are trying to do you a solid, right? They're like, dude, I love spending time with you. You're doing all this fucking cool, da 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 da. But like, I'm reading this other thing, like, oh, you're just seeing the good stuff. And it's like, I need to bring in the bad stuff to neutralize it. And it's just like this shitty, like tug and pull, right? Now I've worked to get to the place and I haven't mastered it. And I don't know if you ever do, but it's like when I met with some sort of elevated compliment that doesn't really suit me, I just let it go.
Yeah.
I don't attach to it and try to be that thing and live up to that thing. It's like, that's something for them.
Yeah. It's their idea.
That's their idea of me or whatever. And if that works for them, that's great. But like, I don't need to attach to it anymore because I spent a lot of years attaching to all those identities. And it's intoxicating, right? It's like a drug. It's like, that feels really good. But what happens? You bring yourself back down to earth and where's the next time I'm going to get that hit? And then you come back down. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just very tiring.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when you finally realize it, it's like, oh, fuck, I don't need to do that anymore. You still fall. I mean, I still fall victim to it, right? It feels good to get the tires pumped every now and then. But been fucking huge learning for me.
Dude, that's the fact that you're on that journey even says so much about the whole process. Like, that is scary shit. Scary shit. Because like what you could do is you could feel all that shame and guilt and be like, nah, I'm gonna believe these other guys. And then you fucking go and you get testosterone, you get all this stuff, and you pump it harder and harder and harder, and you start believing all these ideas that if I don't struggle, if I don't feel this struggle, I don't really have value. I don't even have, I can't even feel like this, gratitude for where I'm at right now. I have to struggle, and it's like, you really? Is that real? Like, you really have to struggle? Like, or is that just the mindset you've been utilizing that's been successful for you? Yeah. Like, because again, like you mentioned earlier, like you go up that summit and you have to climb back down. Like if I go back down, that means the summit wasn't successful. I mean, like I'm basically saying to everybody, because everyone's seeing this, I'm on an elevated, screen right now. Like everyone's seeing that, like I really didn't win. And it's like, oh, I have to give up all my accolades, I have to give up all this stuff to go back down. It's like, fuck that. I'm going to whack through this damn trail. I'm going to pull up new ropes. I'm going to, shoot myself full of this thing. I'm going to get a helicopter to take me up to the next mountain, whatever it is.
Grind through it. Yeah. Whatever it fucking takes. I don't care. It's not my journey, but it's going to be now.
Yeah. And you die like that.
Die on that mountain.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. You die up there. And it's like, well, I mean, was it worth it? Yeah, maybe that guy, maybe it was, but to you, obviously not. Like there was something you wanted to be more holistic. You wanted to have the sky and the earth together. Like that's how we function. We need atmosphere. We need the ground. Like we need two. If you get too high in the clouds, like you would hope something pulls you back down. Like you would hope.
I'd argue that it does.
You
may not be sure exactly.
Yeah, and they call it gravity, but really maybe it's just a mindset. Like you need to be connected to the earth. Like the earth is actively pulling you to the center. Like maybe that's just the mindset we really need to have. Like that's, gravity, whether, some people say like what it is, what it isn't, it doesn't really matter, but having that as a mindset, like, oh yeah, gravity, there's always going to be a tension pulling me towards the ground. It's like, maybe that's useful. Maybe you should use that.
A great term that is often used is like, I need to get grounded, or I'm grounded, or that person's grounded. It's like, that's a very positive experience, right? It's like, yeah, you can be up in the clouds and gain some knowledge and wisdom and whatever, but you need to live on the ground. That's like we're not birds, right? No. That's not our existence. And so I love that piece of grounding. And I know that when I'm not grounded, there's nothing to hold on to.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just like, and I've tried to hold on to my things, right?
For
the
sure.
accomplishments or whatever, those things that, I hold in high regard or have held in high regard. And it becomes a pointless kind of fool's errand because there's nothing to hold on to.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that journey, that summit, it's very interesting. I like that. I mean, again, I like that analogy of just, and you put it in there, like everybody sees what your path is too, like,
I mean, that's the goal.
They see you,
like you're openly putting everything on Instagram and like hoping, we're paying money, for people to see us.
Yes.
Like, how do I get more views? I'm gonna put these fucking hashtags in these things. And like, then people are going to search for these hashtags and they'll see my fucking journey, so when that shit comes down, it's like, and
I think what we're seeing, I think what we're called to, and I know a lot of guys that, my brothers back in Chicago who are, come on this similar journey. They're called to these men who are showing that they went 2/3 of the way up and they went all the way back down, and they went 2/3 of the way up and they went all the way back down. And they're not necessarily trying to get to the top, but they just want to be moving. They want to be in process of trying to figure it out. Right. And be on that journey and be okay having to walk back down and to show everyone. And I think that's what I've seen, maybe inspired me a little bit, is I think there are a lot of men out there that are hyper masculine that aren't showing this walk back down. They're just showing this one path up.
Yeah.
The 10-step
absolutely program. When you're describing that, I get this visual of, the EKG like report, like a readout of your heart functioning. It's like this up and down rhythm.
Oh yeah.
And there's a flat line, right? The flat line is whenever it's like a horizontal flat line. It means you're dead. But we have this idea, like if we turn the line vertical, if you just keep going up and up and up, we're winning. But it's like, no, like maybe just looking at it from the wrong direction. Maybe it's a flat line, you're actually dying with that. Like you're literally racing to the end. It's not even a real possibility. Like you just pick up a freaking 9mm and put it to your head if that's the goal. Like you're racing to an end. Like what are you doing? Like it's a flat line. Like you need that up and down scale. You need that. Like that's what actually, what's what it looks like. And that's a 2-dimensional level. Really, it's actually a spiral. It's really spiraling. Like we're just seeing it in 2 dimensions, but it's really actually spiraling, going down, up, down, up, down, up. We're just seeing it in 2 dimensions. So we really need a spiral. And like if we think that we can go on a linear path, we're crazy. That's not the way life works. Like that's how everything moves. And if we're trying to go against the natural frequency of life itself, that's death. Like that's there is no other way to really feel like you're existing and being on purpose than to go in the actual spiral sequence of life. Like, sorry, bro, but winter's coming. It's gonna come. You might as well enjoy it.
It's interesting too to bring in the season analogy. It's like there's this whole process of shedding and rebirth and growth and shedding and dormancy and it's not really rewarded. It's certainly not taught at all. And I guess it's really not rewarded unless you're looking at the right people, but it is this whole, this trajectory. It's not even a trajectory. It's a straight line. This idea that I'm going to go for this thing. I'm going to have this goal. Boom. I got it. What's the next one? And then it's just this pursuit and you're never getting to the top, and you're always, kind of on looking ahead, right? We've talked about this, like when you're looking ahead, you're not able to be present.
Sure.
And I think that's the real challenge. The thing that for me has been like, I spent 45 years, like not understanding what presence was, not even understanding it as a concept.
Yeah.
And so now that I'm aware of it, I try to be kind to myself when I'm not present. It's like, okay, it's a real challenge.
Yeah.
But I know that with my old mindset of like trying to achieve things, it was like I was always doing, I was not being, right? It was like always reaching for these things. And when I got it, there was that momentary like, yes, and then it's fucking over.
Yeah.
It was all about the pursuit. And so then I had to do another thing. and just pursue that. And while I'm pursuing that, like I'm missing life around me.
Sure.
It's a single.
Sure. Cause like what you're describing is like sun energy, like it's like atmospheric. It's like growing. It's, it's masculine. But what you're saying, like grounding is feminine. Like, so we have to connect to that piece too, to actually really own the material. Like it has to be made up of the earth. Like to actually materialize anything, it has to come from the nutrition of the ground or the minerals in the soil. Like we have to create it from the earth. If we just have all these like desires and we're going after like all these things, like they're never even physical. Like they're, you're soon, like you said, as soon as you get it, you're like, yeah, just for a second, it's here. And then boom, back to the clouds again. And it's like, so owning, like really being present is actually jumping into your feminine side and getting with like the ground, like being in the dirt and really acknowledging that like, this is where things come from, which is what acceptance is, which gratitude, appreciation, all those are feminine aspects of the psyche. And like, those are what, presence teaches you is like, oh yeah, like I'm in this place in time right now. I got my history. I got my story, not his story. I got my story now. Like, oh, it's actually my story is mystery. So I'm actually in the future. But at the same time, like now I'm grounded and you have like, take you back out. But it allows you to have like a file. And I think about it in a way of computer, like if you have like a desktop open, like you have a file, like, oh yeah, like this is the stuff. This is like the earth-based stuff. This is like the sun-based stuff, or my desires and aspirations. I have those too, but now I can actually be in the middle of them, versus like being in one or the other. Like, okay, I'm out of my ground again. I got to go run back to ground. Like, no, man. Like all these things exist in this realm together. If you're like, incorporating them, not segmenting them, like it's all together. Like, don't think about, I have to be grounded, but I have to have desires. Like, no, like those all exist from the same thing. And like, that's what presence is not necessarily going back and acknowledging your past. And it's not recognizing the future. It's recognizing that it's all is one being right now. That's what being is. But yeah, that's a trick, man. That's a trick. How do you, do that? Like that's for everyone, it's gonna be different, right?
Well, I want to back up for one second because you had me a little bit of a mental pretzel.
Okay.
History and mystery. I want you to unpack that for a sec.
History, his story.
Yep.
And then
so it's not your story.
It's not. Yeah, it's someone else's. You're saying history, like you're literally like not even claiming history, it,
but it's gone.
His story. Like what? I want to hear his story. Like what? No, like why don't you just tell me your story? No, his story, like just like my story. Okay, well, what is your story? And I do this for people, like with my clients. Like I ask them their story, not like his story. I don't want the history. I want their story. And like a lot of people don't really want to look at their story. They want to remember facts about World War II and all kinds of shit, but they don't want to, and whatever's on the news, like, and they want to catalog that, but they cover up their story.
And so would you say that when you ask me for my story, it's really a present day account of what's going on, like for me right now?
Yeah. How you interpret the life that you're in right now.
Yeah. Because it's funny when I think about just, if we don't break it apart and we just think of like your history, like your past, let's call it that. Like when we think about the past,
sure.
Like the past is gone. And that's one thing that really kind of fucked with me when I was like in the sauna, and it was like, I was listening to I think I was listening to Aubrey with Duncan Trussell, and I forget exactly how Duncan described. He's like the present day is like a centipede, but with just the head. And like, you want like the past to be like the body, but there's no body. It's gone. There's literally, it's just a memory. Right. Like there's nothing.
It's a phantom.
It's so crazy. And that blew my mind, and it kind of scared me a little bit. Like I'd been relying on that as a crutch, nostalgia, whatever the manifestation of it. But it was like, oh man, like that means everything I do right now, like is going to be gone.
Yeah. Dude, I honestly think the past is your body and your mind. That's all it is. Cause like it's your memories are stored in like your your body, like you're holding it somewhere. And I don't have a distinction from mind and body. So the way you look at it, how you see it, or how you analyze your life, like that's also your body. Like it's your physical, non-spiritual realm. Like it's the mind and the body are your physical, some people, it's popular to call it the space, spaceship, on planet Earth. Like it's your physical vessel. Like the mind and body are one thing. And like your past is how like your body looks. You can see how it looks right now. Oh yeah, I have, tension in my chest. Like, oh yeah, that was from, I got, abused as a child or whatever. I'm afraid of this, new thing. So it's anxiety. Like, or you have this crazy ability to do gymnastics or, muscle ups or something. It's like, oh yeah, I've learned that. I learned like how to do that. Like your body is like a memory vessel. So like all your past is like your physical presence right now. And like how I can utilize it right now. It's like there's no real reason to, the past is if it's you have a problem, like you have a problem in your body, like the past is really relevant. Like you should look at it and be very clear about something. It means you have some issues that you're not looking at in your physical realm right now. But like you really don't need the past. Because if you look at your past, you're looking at your past, you're gonna get eaten. Like that's the reality of it. Like something's gonna take you. Someone's taking your attention, whether it be television, whether it be a car accident, texting, like whatever it is, like you're being taken, you're being eaten. So like the past is really in the way I look at it is like your physical body, mind, mind body for me is like the same thing. Mm-hmm. And it's what's going on there. For me, if someone's coming up to me like, yeah, I'm 20 pounds, like overweight, I want to lose this 20 pounds. Like, okay, how does it feel? How's that 20 pounds feel? Well, it feels like shit, man. Like it hurts. Like I hate it. Like I fucking can't even see my dick. Like whatever it is, I can't get a girlfriend. Like it feels like shit. Like, oh, well, you have some issues with your past. Then you have some issues with my story, your mystery, and it is a mystery. Like let's go in and look at it. Like let's look at it and dissect these things.
So I want you to talk more about that because I think, again, a very new concept for me is, whether it was, whether this was colored from my experience as an athlete or from a trader, like you're trying to predict things, right? You're trying to predict outcomes. And I think it's pretty prevalent amongst humans to want to predict what's going on and as Peter Crone would say, is like this ego-based kind of direction. It's informed by past pain, and so we're trying to avoid future pain, right? And so we're looking at all the iterations, and it's a clusterfuck, right? But now when I hear you say my story mystery, it's like I've kind of flipped over to this, like, I don't know how this is all going to unfold, and I don't need to know.
Yeah.
I just need to be present and take the steps that feel good for me. So I love this notion of my story is a mystery.
Yeah. And
you don't need to figure it out.
There is no past. Like you're creating it every second. Like whatever you tell yourself, that's what it is. Like, I mean, especially if you resolve pain, like, okay, yeah, man, my dad beat the fuck out of me, dude. Like he used to beat the shit out of me, man. And like, it made me hate the motherfucker. And for a long time, I hated men, but it brought me closer to women. And I learned to develop how my relationship with women is, conflicted because of my dad's issues. So like, so you're saying it was an actually helpful thing? Yeah. Like he taught me, like my dad beating the shit out of me taught me how to deal with women. So was it bad? Well, the experience back then, it was pretty bad. But now that I think about it, like, it did show me this. So it was some good. Which one was it? Bad or good? Oh, fuck. It's just how you look at things. Like, what is your channel? And like, for me, like I look at the human body as like, what channel do you want to be on? And then let's tune to that. Like let's tune the body to that thing that you're wishing, the projector, whatever you're seeking, like whatever it is, whatever you're desiring, like let's tune the channel so that you don't have to desire anymore. It just you're on the network. Like the shit just comes in, like do you want to tune into, news frequencies that are talking about like, the freaking ISIS or something? Like, well, you're going to change your body. You're going to armor up. You're going to get, whatever it is so you can get more of that and learn more of that issues. Like, it's not bad. It's not bad, but you're tuning in. Yeah. Like, what do you want to tune into? Like, it's just like a television. Like, how do we clean the system that allows a new channel to exist? And it's like, well, maybe we should change the station. And changing the station happens to be the past, which is our body and our mind. Yeah. You know, like it's super confusing and it's super paradoxical, like, which is like what makes it great. You know, that's why my story is mystery. Like, you know, it sounds so close. Like your story, take out history. Okay, it's not his story. It's actually mine. I'm going to go ahead and own this. It's mine. It happened to me or happened to me. I actually chose it, whatever. It's still my story. All right, cool. Well, now it's a mystery because don't know if it's good or bad. It's a mystery because it's only, you know, relevant if I, you know, need it. It's like, because there's just a lot of people that forget everything, you know, that happened to them in their childhood. And like, it's not relevant at the moment. And maybe you can call it subconscious, whatever, like it's all underlying, but the truth is it's not needed right now, you know? And when we get to a place where we need it, like it'll pop up, you know, it'll pop up and your story will be then again, like a mystery. But it's just for me, it's just a way of looking at things of like, oh, wow, like I really don't even need to think about, you know, history of the past. And I really don't need to think about the future so much. I need to tune my channel to clean energy of how I want to be seen and how I want to be felt and how I want to feel myself. And then my future will be however I want it to be because I'm already being. Yeah. I'm already in that. I'm already receiving what I want to receive. And like, whether it comes like, okay, yeah, now I have a mansion, like, and I feel good about it. Like, yeah, this is awesome. Or whether I live, you know, where I live now. And like, I still feel good about it. Yeah. So I'm where I want to be. You know, it's just all the other stuff doesn't really necessarily matter. It doesn't really matter because it's not present. It's not materialized. You know, like material being is what, you know, presence is. Like, how can you be in the earth, of the earth, right in this moment? And like, if you're not looking at the body in the way it feels, like you're not there. Like you're maybe in your mind, you're thinking about stuff, but you're not connected to the actual feminine side, which is the body, of your tissue.
Well, just to back up a step, I loved your connection of, you know, having this, you know, I think a lot of people have these upbringings that can be challenging, right? And a lot of times we just want to put blame on the person who was the perpetrator, right? And we give no space for the fact that there was a lot of learning and growth that came out of that. And I think one of the things that we've learned is that this pain that you felt early on informs who you become. You know, it's that void that you felt. Yeah. You know, what do? Like, arguably, you go do that thing because you felt a void, and so you become that thing. And if you take it a step further, and kind of circling back to what we were talking about earlier, that person, the perpetrator, right? What was going on in their life that created that trauma for you? Right? They didn't do it because of any other thing that except that this is exactly what they were supposed to do at that point, right? And so there are consequences when you have this behavior, for sure. I'm not saying there's not accountability and stuff like that, but they were acting as they were taught through their lineage, what was going on at work, relationships, whatever informed that behavior.
Yeah. Or they could have just been a distorted human being. Like that disorientation is real. When we see it with like Alzheimer's or even, you know, in young children, like you see it with diabetes in children or what's the word I'm looking for? The autism. Yeah. It's a disorientation. Like it's a disorganization. There's no order. The order is there, but it's not functioning at the right or the correct way. So like there is instances where people are broken, whether it be from like, you know, their ancestors and themselves were fed horse shit and lots of chemicals, and now their brain and mind don't communicate on the right channel. Like the channel is actually, you know, confusing and disoriented, and then they think it's right to do shit to that person that hurt them. But realizing like, yeah, they were fucked up, dude. And then you know what, man, like fucked up shit happens. Like that's just the way it is. But are you going to let it, you know, are you going to continue life or not?
That's the part.
What's
It's
the
like
deal?
just understanding fucked up shit happens.
Totally
and it happens
does.
to everyone.
Yeah. Fuck
on
that shit
different levels
totally
and
happens.
sometimes in different, intensities and likely or, for some people more times than others. But
yeah, absolutely. It's not to discredit anybody for sure in their
we just
story.
want to like blame and judge
Yeah.
and do. I mean, that's how I've spent my whole life, like just like pointing fingers and whether it was at me or what else. But it's this whole idea that there's no there's like no judgment in reality in the universe until we put our own shit on.
Yeah, put your own flavor where you're at. Are you for the team or are you against the team? Like which?
And if we can just allow for it to be, this is something that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to say that it's not going to make you feel shitty or really happy. You have no emotion, but
yeah, pain is not like a necessarily like quote unquote great feeling experience. Like
no,
but it is very important. It's super important. Yeah. I don't know if I told you about that experiment that I actually read this on Dr. Berceli's website, or maybe it's just one of his courses I took. But they quoted an experiment that I believe it's 3 ducks. It was like they had like a neutral duck, like nothing was affected in this one. And they had a duck that they affected and they had a duck that like they didn't. So they just kind of go through the story. They took one duck and they poked it with a pin and they placed it in the water. And this duck like flipped over and couldn't really swim that good. And it was like pretty bad, pretty fucked up. And they poked another duck and they allowed it to like go through this mechanism of like shaking and like getting out. And that duck floated. Well, they get another duck and they throw it in there without poking it, doing anything. And the fucking duck that got poked and shook it out and got over it did way better swimming. And they replicated this over and over again. So they're showing like the actual inherent pain. There's something that they're gaining from that pain. And now they're better at being the duck. Whether it be they have, some special powers, supernatural powers. I don't, you can go into whatever you want. But the fact is that the duck that was affected, but was allowed to get through it, was better off than the duck that had nothing wrong, nothing affected at all. And it's like, makes you think about like, oh, is pain really this thing that we complain about? Like, or is it a thing that we could get over and actually be stronger? Like it's just a new paradigm that it's a possibility. Because I know every time I have pain and I go into it versus repress it, good shit happens. Like it feels hard and makes me, I may cry or get angry or frustrated and all these feelings come up. But the fact is, after that's gone,
Yeah. I felt that. On the Mankind Project weekend, I felt that.
Absolutely.
That pain very, viscerally.
And you don't
when I was through it, it was like that was powerful. That I felt like I came away stronger.
Sure. It doesn't mean you have to inflict pain. Like,
no.
You know what I mean? Like, but if there's already something going on and it's already in the background, like, let's go ahead and like.
It's not like you hit your kid and say, I'm doing you a favor here.
You're a good kid. Like, that's the reason to beat your ass. You're going to be a pro boxer.
You're stronger.
Exactly.
So it's, oh, fuck, man, that's interesting. The problem, right, is that there's so much pain that doesn't get treated.
Sure. Absolutely. Right? That's the issue.
We get in the home and it's
the idea now is that pain is a disorientation that like is wrong. And like, I think it's right. I think it's really actually a good thing. I mean, yeah, if you got injured in a car accident, you like, something shit happened like that, that's different. Like, I'm not talking about like you're getting fucked up and now you can't even move. Like you're in a lot of pain. Like, it sucks, but you still still have the chance to grow from that. But like, if the pain is happening, like I have chronic tension in my neck every time I see a certain image of a person, it's really a great thing because it's actually an indicator. It's like if you had a gas tank on your car without a check or the low engine fuel light, like you'd be fucked a lot of the time. You run out of gas all the time, like people complain about this check engine light or whatever coming on, and they go and they get it treated from people that literally want to suppress it. They're trying to take it off. It's like, what are you doing? Don't give me Viking or what's the Zoloft or whatever it is that people are being prescribed by the the leading healers of the day. They call doctors. Like, that's the way we deal with pain. Like, no, you work through it.
You're
You've
right.
all
It's like
passed it.
these are triggers and they're this information. And I think this is really cool that we're coming around to this for me, because Peyton talks a lot about this with women as they go into menopause. They're taught or given prescriptions to suppress these symptoms.
Yeah.
Where she's like, no, these symptoms
are terrible. Symptoms are terrible.
Yeah,
feelings and emotions are terrible.
Yeah. And it's like, no, you need to lean into these.
Yeah.
And that's exactly kind of what you're talking about. These triggers are indications that there's something not right with you regarding this thing.
Yeah.
So if it keeps triggering you, you can allow it to continue to trigger you and set you off course, so you can start to investigate why that's triggering you, and then get to the root cause and then release it.
Yeah, absolutely. Release it. Like, how good does that feel, man? I mean, that's what coming is. Like, right? I mean, like, like it's the buildup of tension, which is what pain is, a buildup of tension, and then a release. Like, that's just sexual energy. But like, I mean, it's the same feeling. It's just not sexualized. You know, it's like, every time, you know, like it's the same feeling, like the,
Oh, that's interesting.
like it's the same releasing mechanism. It's just not sexual energy going through. It's like maybe chronic tension from a place and time, that you're storing in your body, because the past is the body, and you're thinking about it through every present moment. Like that's the problem, like with pain and tension in the body that doesn't get resolved, is that you're bringing this shit to every present moment. And so every encounter that you see is filtered through this way of being. And I don't know about you, but whenever I was in a place and time like that, I didn't trust other men. It fucked up a lot of relationships where I could have been like, I could have, had certain things come into my life that I wanted, but now I don't, because I was like filtering it all out. I was seeing them as, negative versus like an actual positive thing for me. So like carrying all this like pain around, like it's not doing anybody any favors, but suppressing it is, you're still the same filter, but now you don't have a feedback. So no feedback, but same filter. Like, so now you people wonder, they go on Zoloft, they have no meaning, they don't know why. I feel great, I have a great time, but I still want to put a bullet in my fucking head.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's a reality. Yeah. And that's what actually creates, mass shooters, apparently.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what
it's crazy idea. It's a crazy idea that's people want that. Turn off the symptoms, please. I'll be fine.
Yeah. Let me coast through this. Well, brother, thanks for being here, man. You're my inaugural guest for the CalCast, and so awesome, I'm honored that you're here. And we could go on for hours.
I know, man. It's just we can literally, this would be an ongoing talk for.
Yeah, but this is what I wanted to try to capture, right? Is just two people having a conversation.